The grand finale of the pâtissier world, who died in a tragic accident before the chosen one meets him, the goddess of the tournament feels her remorse and reincarnates him in another world. Bake the Lord's son with this second chance in this magical world and the creation of sweets that make people smile when they aim to use their skills. Kazrul and his wife Anise are having an important conversation with him. He needs to be calm and careful. Anis is a little worried, thinking that he might have bought something for himself without including her, but he is like this, assures that he will not be upset about anything. Kazrul hesitates for a moment, and says that he has another girl in his life, and this why he surprises us as he tells her that he is a bit shocked, as he has never heard such words from her, as this is the first time he has heard such a thing. He explains that he misunderstood her, and asks her to tell him more about this girl. He describes her as a beautiful girl from a very respectable family, and mentions that she has a twin sister. Anise is intrigued, and she shares her concerns about him getting to know any other girl. Casual chuckles, and explains that their son Bess approves of this girl as he sees her as a suitable match. Anis processes this, and realizes that the girl Kazrul was talking about is actually intended for their son Bess. She apologizes for thinking he was going to cheat on her, and admits that she thought he had bought something for himself again. At this moment Bess enters the room, and asks his father about his mother's response to his proposal. Kazrul informs Bess that his mother needs some time to process the news, as she was genuinely shocked. Bess expects this situation to last at least a month before any progress is made. Later, the scene shifts to the Rydishvale province, where we meet Lady Rydish. Her assistant enters, and informs her that Bess, the heir of the mortal and family, is engaged. The engagement has been announced to the daughter of Margrave Huberic, causing Lady Rydish to be surprised by this news. She continues to resent the poor knight, who joined a noble family like that. Lady Rydish then inquires about the girl, and learns that she is the fourth daughter of Margrave Huberac, named Licorice. She's the twin sister of Petra, who was recently engaged to the Duke Catalchik's GR and son. There have been absurd rumors circulating about the engagement being a way to prove virtue after Petra's abduction. It's possible that the Huberic family intends to wait a few years for the incident's memory to fade before potentially breaking off the engagement. So Reddish informed him that his assumption was incorrect. The true goal of the Huberic family is to make others feel comfortable with the fantasy of their unity. Her assistant comprehends her explanation, noting that the Mubarak family's influence has grown significantly through the alliance with the Margaret of Cadillacic family. When they united with a smaller family like Morteln, they aimed to show that they weren't trying to strengthen their position through strategic marriages. Reddish continues to explain that the Margrave believes that Mortland's estate has the potential to thrive and match the prosperity of their own province. When the and was granted to them 20 years ago, it was just barren ground. Over the last 3 years they've reduced their wheat crops and started cultivating beans. They've used these beans as fertilizer to enrich the soil, resulting in improved wheat crops. Interestingly, this idea came from a 9-year-old. Bess, the assistant, is amazed by this revelation, finding it hard to believe that a child could come up with such an idea. However, Rydish reminds him of the negotiations when they visited for compensation after a road accident. It was Bess, not his father Kazrul, who managed the negotiations and outperformed them. Surely the old Mubarak noticed the potential in this young boy and agreed to the alliance. The scene then shifts to the mortal and province, where Bess is walking along the road. He arrives at the village of Lamult carrying a box. He hands the box to a man there, thanking him for his assistance, and then her friends ask her about the boxes, and Bess explains that they are help requested by Duke Catalchik and Lord Squall, who promised to help them during the deal announcement. They open the box to find a tree inside, and Bess explains that it's a seedling of the black locust tree, also called a false acacia tree. Her friend then asks her to eat the seedling. She asks if Bess can make a black locust tree pie, which she doubts, says if he did, his friend wouldn't be able to eat it, but he explains that these trees grow easily in poor soil and produce a lot of nectar, which means they help produce honey. Means that Bess's friends will be very excited and imagine what to do. Thinks that honey is indispensable for making sweets in any place and at any time, because every place has its own confectionery history. His friend tells him to grow these trees and collect honey for the best enjoyment of sweets. He continues to say that there are problems growing them here, and his friend realizes that he is talking about the soil and water situation. He mentions that his GR and father taught him about the low rainfall in the mortal and province, And how every tree they plant withers before growing fully best reveals that they're going to change their mindset to provide water for the trees, and change their way of thinking. There are sweets that can be made by changing our perspective. His friends are amazed by what he's saying. He tells them that instead of following the tradition of planting crops in fertile lands with abundant rainfall, they'll use a known technique from arid regions. They will build reservoirs to collect water, providing enough for the trees to thrive throughout the dry spring beginnings. That's why he chose this undeveloped and afterward the scene shifts to the palace where Cheats reads a letter that states the profits from textile sales amount to 8 silver coins. After expenses, the wheat reached 14 silver and 5 copper coins along with the emergency aids. With this, the total profit is 4 gold coins and 3/8. This concludes the report on last year's profits for the world. Crows and Cheats are joyful that their efforts brought them profits. All over the world, Cheats tells him that they were in a dire situation when they arrived here. Corsel tells him that they went through many ups and downs, and the young boy played an important role in it. He was their savior. Thanks Best for being with them and helping them throughout the journey. Cheats then talks to Bess about their decision to stay for a long time. He tells Best that there are 2 more matters they should discuss: good news and bad news. He starts with the good news, which is that their cousin, Joe Milan, has gathered over 40 settlers, most of whom were advanced settlers, and they no longer have a place to retreat to after their farms were looted by the highwaymen. Chris L. says they have 40 settlers, so they need to accelerate the village building process. Bess asks about the newcomers, and Cheats informs him that the 5 people they appointed with the reward they received for rescuing Licorice are being trained by Glassage. Gazelle mentions that if having more people means the and will prosper, there's nothing to complain about. As for the bad news, Cheats informs Best that he heard Bistoria set off on a new adventure. He received a report that Bistorai is heading to Lomalat with his friends. At this point, Khazrul becomes very angry with his son Batorai as he didn't ask for permission and didn't inform him about this adventure. He hits the table in frustration, and Cheats tells Best that they need to leave now to find Bistorai. The scene then shifts to Bistorai and his friends who are in a place resembling a large mountain. The story uses his extraordinary abilities by extending his right and striking the rock with a powerful blow that causes the entire area to explode. As a result, his friends fall to the ground due to the force of Bistorai's strike. His friends are astonished by the spectacle they witnessed, and Bestari himself is happy, unable to believe he accomplished it. He had copied the magic of Sita Rudel. The thief Bistorai approaches his friends, who encourage him for what he's done, considering it a great achievement. He tells them that the magic is more useful than he expected. The story continues with laughs as he's glad he did it all himself. Leading his friends unsteadily starts making moves to believe that he may have lost his mind. Then Bistorai once again exerts his strength and digs the rocks. After some time, he successfully creates a hole in the rock, which serves as a planting area. His friends, they will be surprised. Without getting involved in the story itself, they say that they were going to plant trees in this area. When he looked at the weather, he saw that rain was coming soon, so as the trees grew, the water would accumulate in this place. They used this area as the cistern closed its eyes to store rainwater. The story of using these spells to cook desserts continued in his mind, and imagined beautiful things. His friends approached him and told him to open his eyes now because a surprise awaited him. However, they said this in a mocking tone. When Bistorai opened his eyes, he found his father and Cheats' tea standing before him. His father was extremely angry, and Bistorai trembled in fear and was drenched in sweat due to his intense fear. When Khazrul asked the story about what was in front of him, the story said he thought it would be a water reservoir, but he went too far in destroying these rocks. At that moment, AKA's Rule became extremely angry. His eyes filled with malice, and his hands seemed to release lightning due to his intense rage. He struck them all on their heads. On the other side, we see Her Highness talking to her minister, looking worried about something. The minister tells her not to worry about the mortal and heir. However, she continues to ponder as the description of the Morton heir matches Bistorai. She wishes she had a son now. The situation would have been easier if he proposed to her. What bothers her even more is that Katalachik and Huberic joined forces without considering her feelings, meddling in the southern affairs despite living in the eastern side. Her Highness is very angry. She finished her tea in one gulp and asked for another pot of tea. When the minister saw her angry like this, he suggested that maybe she should propose to him herself. The princess pointed out that she is 10 years older than him, or maybe even 20 years. But she started considering this clever idea. She needs a way to bring him under her wing. We then move to the Villagers governed by Bess who were very happy about the irrigation canal Bess constructed. They also heard that Bess has built 3 more similar ponds in less than a month. The amazing part is the ingenious thinking of using tanks to collect water from the irrigation channels. Just then someone approaches them checking on the water channels. They assure him that they are excellent. And Bess is overjoyed to hear this. They have already planted all the saplings, and once they obtain honey from them they'll be able to prepare sweets. Bess's friends mentioned that they could use the honey to prepare desserts. Suddenly Bess's older sister, Josie, arrives carrying a letter. She seems urgent, and they suspect it might be from his charming fiancée. Being his elder sister, Josie takes on the responsibility and brings the letter to him herself. Bess becomes very embarrassed and takes the letter from her, and he begins to read the letter. His friends and sister approach him to know who sent the letter. He informs them that it's from Count Ridish inviting him to a tea ceremony. She mentioned that she hoped to get his opinion about their new tea. Bess is surprised because the Count invited him personally. She must be planning something. Meanwhile, Cheats assigns this boy some tasks, telling him that once these tasks are completed they'll figure out how to manage the grain reserves. The boy becomes annoyed with all these tasks, thinking that working and it would be easy in the village. Cheaters tells her that he understands her feelings but insists that it's too naughty little brat, referring to Bess who caused all this work. Suddenly Bess overhears this and responds saying misunderstanding shins everything happening in mortal and falls under my father's feudal rule. In other words, my father is the cause of your excessive work. Cheats asks for clarification on who bypassed that rule and dug the reservoir. Bess, as the next feudal lord, admits that he acted on behalf of his father. Cheats expresses astonishment and disbelief at how Bess always manages to escape situations cleverly. Cheats then scolds the working boy, telling him if he has complaints he should address his grievances to his father later. Cheats asks Bess about his father's whereabouts. Cheats informs Bess that his father is out working in the royal capital and hasn't returned yet. Bess reveals that Count Ridish invited him to a tea ceremony, and Cheats is also surprised that she invited him personally. He suggests she must be planning something and considers discussing it with his father. Suddenly Bess's father arrives and tells him that he knows about it. He overheard it from someone else in the capital, not from Count Ridish. Bess asks him what he wants. Bess's father hints that he heard about his negotiations regarding the road accident compensation and asks for revenge for how he and led it. Bess's father says he'll talk about it later, but says he has an important visitor with him right now, Happy, and he is so happy to see her again that he cheats her husband and teases her about being lucky enough to visit him at home.